yourself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. A double whammy for you today. I've had time to do two shows, so here we are. Looking back on Newcastle United's draw against Bournemouth, not something that we were expecting. A lot of it, I think we all know, is down to the fact that we haven't got a great deal of strength in depth. But let's hear what the lads have got to say. Stu, evening, mate.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, look, a bit of a fallout, as you can imagine. A handful of people, and I mean a handful of people booing at the end of the game, which was ridiculous. But, you know, look, it is what it is. We know we aren't the finished article yet. We are building, at the moment at Newcastle. But, yeah, Bournemouth came with a plan and they went away with a well-deserved point.
Yeah, well, before you start, before we do this, just when we were in the green room before, he said this is going to be a hell of a show, so strap yourself in. I think Mitch has took it literally, hasn't he? He's got a seatbelt on. Yeah, I think you're right what you're saying, Steve. You've got to give Bournemouth credit, to be fair. For as poor as we are, they came with a game plan and shithoused themselves their way to a point. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. You know, it's something we've done for, well, previous to this calendar year, something we've done for 3 or 4 years prior to that, even going back Rafa's time we were doing it. So it's been done to us. So in a way, it shows how far we've advanced, and we are seen as a scalp, and we have to take it as a compliment that teams like them, teams like Palace, who are a decent team, will come and sit in and make it difficult for us. And again, you mentioned just there the strength and depth. I think anyone looking at the squad at the bench yesterday will tell you there wasn't a game changer on there. You know, there was like for like some, you know, once people have burnt themselves out, playing someone else. But we're a team in transition, we're a squad in transition, and we've only had 2 windows. But the difference between this year and last year, if you look, we're at 70% possession yesterday, same with the Palace game. We're starting to dominate teams. And for all the fury that, oh, we're rubbish with this, that, and that, we want a team that tries. And even when they're not playing well, they tried, and we're still going to draw. So I'm happy with that. But yesterday it was, let's not neglect it, it was probably the worst performance this calendar year, or definitely the worst home performance we've given under Eddie Howe, but we still didn't get beat. And it still remains focused St James's, where teams are taking points. Only 2 have from St James's, and that's the top 2 in the land. They managed to take points away from us, but was it lackluster? Yeah. Was it frustrating? Yeah. Were they off the pace? Yes. Will we have more off days like this? Yes. But most importantly, there'll be few and far between. They'll be less frequent. And is it a disaster? No. Now, some of the reactions been like mind-boggling, hasn't it? Like, oh, Saka, this, that, and it's like, oh, he's crazy. We drew. Manchester City have drawn twice this season. One of them was against us, you know, and we need to start educating ourselves. I think we've been brainwashed into expecting the worst and being critical, but we've had very little of to be critical of this new regime and this new manager. And him himself was quite frank in his assessment after the game. It was poor. It wasn't what he expected. It wasn't what we expected. But we come away with a point. Take all the VAR decisions out of the way, and I'd rather do like lots of ifs. If we'd won yesterday, which we should have, or we're capable of doing, we had enough chances to win. Same with Palace. So ignore the VAR decisions of other games and the Palace game. If we'd have taken 3 points from those 2 home games, we'd been sitting 5th, and then there's no issue. As it happens, we're still top 10. And if we were this time last year, I think we're in the bottom 3 already. Yes, we've only won once, but we've only lost once. A couple of those draws, turn them into wins, and we're on the right track anyway. One bad performance doesn't mean we're a bad team.
Bad performance, you say, but 20 shots on goal. One of them was a goal. I think it was 7 or 8 on target, 73% possession. Hit the bar. Joe Linton hit the bar. Trippier hit the post with another one of these speciality free kicks. You know, there was positives in the game. It was just the fact that Bournemouth came, you know, and he, as you say, Mitch's phrase that he's used many times, shithousery, really, which I think there was a point made by one of the people on the chat this morning that we did the Monday Club with Joe. You know, how tables have turned. Once upon a time, it was us doing that to teams. Now teams are coming to do that to us. That's a respect. We should feel we've made progress because people are doing that to us now, you know.
Yeah, well, yesterday the performance was pedestrian, and they can point the fingers. They're fit enough, and yeah, they had shots, but they seemed to panic in the last 15, 20 minutes. They could feel the anxiety coming from the crowd, I suppose. And I think if we'd scored one, we would have got 2 or 3. But it's not to be, and it's football is not always going to go the way you want it. But what was pleasing for me, even when, like, using the words pedestrian and lackluster, if Bruno was back and he wasn't at his best, and that was probably reflecting on the team itself. You know, people relying on him. But I watched him keenly yesterday, and I was marveling at his weight of pass, how comfortably he is with the ball, and when he's happy to take it at any pace, any height, and the way he releases it is always right to the person at the right pace to make it easier for them. And we have a real gem there. He got, what, 70 odd minutes inside him yesterday. Then there's going to be the international break. Hopefully he gets a little run about there. And then back to Fulham, we should have at least St. Maximin back as well. And I say he's getting 3 points there. And all of a sudden the world's rosy again. Yeah.
Before I come to Mitch, I think we owe it to this lady to sing happy birthday. It is Julie's birthday in the chat. One of our moderators, been with us since day one. So after 3, lads, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Julie. Happy birthday to you. There you are.
And now, there we are. There's the special guest.
Fantastic. Welcome, Sudi. What did you think of the game?
What? Well, I don't know where Ordinary Fan is. That's Friday night with him. He goes, is he writing another letter? I don't know. You have to ask him yourself. Sorry, Steve, 2 minutes. Where's Zelda from Terrorhawks? That's not a nice thing to say about Steve, is it? Steve, he says, if he calls you a bold Tory nonce, will that get him on Troll of the Week?
It will, yes. 100%. Can you ask him a question, please? Where is Sue?
Yeah.
Because I quite liked Sue when I was younger.
No, well, he's in therapy at the minute because he caught Sue being spit roasted by Fozzie Bear and Kermit the Frog. So he's a bit traumatized about Sue.
Where is Sweep? That's the question. You need to get Sweep on for next week.
He's in the 5 Hotel on the Palm, living it up with the birds with the false boobs.
Oh, dear me, what a classic. When you said you were going to get somebody on, you haven't let us down. And
no, absolutely.
And he's colour coordinated.
Absolutely, you know.
That's what I was worried about.
Colour coordinating.
All right, mate. Great stuff. Thank you for bringing that guest. I hope we don't have to pay him anything. Bye. Bye, Sudi.
Bye, Sudi.
He's just going to hang around for a bit. We'll involve him in the chat. It's fine.
All right, mate. Okay, give us your views, mate. First of all, great to see your dad. 2 legends together yesterday at the Spood Bank, him and Peter Beardsley.
That's a lovely photo, and he's obviously had another canny day with us, and that's fantastic. You know, it's amazing the things we've done since we started getting involved with it. Is always amazing. When Stu and I were back, we were gobsmacked and delighted and humbled by the amount of people coming over and saying hello and shaking my hands and thanking me for what we've done during lockdown and beyond. It's been, you know, really lovely, and it's nice to see my dad doing bits and bobs like that.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Okay, give us your assessment of the game that you watched yesterday.
Well, Sooty says, you know, it's a very it's an interesting change. This time last year, we're talking about turning losses into draws. Now we're talking about turning draws into wins. And it's a very different conversation. Yesterday, we had enough chances to win. That little passage of play where The keeper made 2 fantastic saves, and we hit the bar. On another day, that's 1-0, and it's a different game. I think we are, from my point of view, showing the little bit of lack of depth we have in the squad now. That's not a nice thing to say about Jacob Murphy, mate. But, you know, it's things like that. We're missing that X factor that we knew we were missing. And I think that everybody knew we were missing. And we tried to get certain people in before the end of the window. And so maybe we're paying a little bit for that. But you're right. Teams are learning how to sort of pitch up and teams are learning how to play against you a little bit. And so I think we've got to cope with that and find a way to cope with that. And the players coming back to fitness, it'll make a difference. But I think this has shown where we need to add during January.
Definitely need to add in January. But we always knew that, Stu. We always knew that we were going to need to bring players in, and midfield is the area where we need to, where we need to do our business, I think. And Maddison getting mentioned again by a lot on Twitter, scored another goal, and he's scoring goals in a poor team.
Yeah, well, we said the Maddison thing was getting revisited, wasn't it, the last week of the window, and it did get revisited. And in a way, it might be one step back to go 2 steps forwards, but don't let anyone kid themselves. We are moving forward. And do you want them to just go and sign someone in the last week out of desperation? And then you have them on a big contract, big money, and it's hard to shift, and it takes up another squad place. Or looking at the way the season before the window closed, you start thinking, right, have we got enough to get through this lot of fixtures before the World Cup starts? People can come back from injury. Other people are like 6 months further down the line for their contracts. Their teams in free fall. We look at Leicester. Let's go back and get him or Tillemans. To me, it's flip-flop who was the one that they were most likely to get. But I think anyhow, and I say that no inside information at all, I think his preference would be for Maddison. And I think that's clear the way it's went out. So if it comes to Leicester are still struggling, they might have a new manager. You've got to take the players into consideration as well. The player power now is as great as it has ever been. And if he's in a team that's struggling and he's unhappy, then he can force his way out in January, especially if we are in the top half on the verges or fringes of Europe. And if that's a player he wants, we'll get him. And by all accounts, he's quite keen on the move as well. So we shouldn't really panic. If you look at the team that started yesterday, minus the players that were injured, it's 50 times better than what we started last season with. So I think we do need to cool the jets a bit. And yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we all want instant success, but it's going to make the ride even more enjoyable. As I said, there'll be a few bumps in the road, but we'll get the players in. We'll get the players that are wanted, and as you know, that they do the proper assessment on them, just the players' personality, how they're gelling with the squad, etc. And if Maddison's the one that they want, he'd look good in that strip as well, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. David R says we had high possession, but we did absolutely nothing with it. Didn't deserve more than a point. I would agree. If ASM is missing, we may need to start Wood and get balls into the box, lacking game changers at the minute. And Ian Toon Trader got in early and said, after attending yesterday, I wanted to ask you and the lads if you think we need a system change to 4-2-3-1 to stop relying on supposed wingers who can't beat the first man. It's just like 4-4-3 that plays to our strengths and means that Miggy's more central on the right and we don't play bloody Fraser as he's a shadow of his former self. For me, Mitch, it's an interesting one because lots of people are chucking in the idea of change of formation, until the injuries are cleared up. Is there a chance that he could potentially play Chris Wood, in the team? Do you think he sees Wood as a potential starter or not? Or has that ship sailed now?
Well, you like it when you've got Wood. All right, okay.
Oh, for God's sake. I'm glad this is an over 18s channel today.
I think it's the 9 o'clock there as well, mate.
It is, that's very true. That's why he's on the hard stuff already. I think it's Isaac is being brought in, and he could have the versatility to play in an alternative formation. And that was when, you know, when we were talking about what kind of striker would we bring in, need to bring someone in who could give different options in terms of a look and a formation, who could play with Wood and with Wilson if needs be. So I think it depends on what he wants to do there. He could, definitely. And then I think we have more options then about how to lay it out off the front man, and Woods proved he can definitely hold stuff up. And so him holding it up with players like Isaac coming onto it might be an interesting way to go. But throughout his time at Newcastle so far, Eddie Howe seemed to want to stick to a formation and just play the players in the positions and so they know their jobs. And swapping to a different formation, is that over-egging the pudding a little bit? Just don't know.
See, I think when everyone's fully fit, I personally think he will play Wilson and Isak. I think Miggy will drop out as well. Miggy's not creating anything at all. There's no crosses. He runs around. He smiles a lot. Malcolm said it yesterday. Said it on Thursday. You know, what's he got to smile about? Very, very little. But I think there will be changes. And somebody made a valid point again. I think it was on one of the threads today on Twitter that, you know, the Saudis won't accept this. And it's something that you, Mitch, and Stu have said on more than one occasion. Don't do second place. And they will be looking at what's going on the pitch. And yes, we're not getting beat. We're getting draws. We're getting points in the bag. We're sitting in 10th place at the moment. Beat Fulham. We'll go, you know, potentially, depending on results, up into the top 8. But, you know, that's not what the Saudis want. And I guess I don't think Howe is on borrowed time, not in the slightest. I just think, you know, these things, you know, we need to start turning draws into wins, don't we, Mitch?
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways, that's a better conversation than the one we were having last year, like I said, which was how to return some of these losses into draws and start to make some points back. So I think let's stick with the glass half full. I can't see that. You're right. I can't see people in Saudi being entirely happy with things as it stands. But I think it would be very harsh and probably unreasonable to say that Howe's on borrowed time in any way, shape, or form. I think let's just see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, as always, Stu, I did watch as you were getting ready to go to bed. You're getting involved in, just numerous people being daft on Twitter as usual. But, you know, we always see that. It's why I tend not to tweet after the match, although I did do it yesterday because I just thought Bournemouth deserved a bit of praise. I thought the best players on the pitch were the Bournemouth players, actually. Yesterday, we just had a bad day at the office. But, yeah, there is, as always, a major knee-jerk reaction, overreaction, call it what you want, on social media. Howe's jobs, he's not at risk at the minute. Of course it's not. But yeah, there is a bit of pressure, isn't there? And a lot of it, I think, came as well yesterday because the atmosphere was as flat as a fart before the game. And a lot of that was we're a country in mourning. It's something unprecedented. War flags, no presence yesterday. Rob Byron chose not to play any stadium music before the game, and there was no music coming onto the pitch either. So I think there was a lot of factors as well as Bournemouth coming with that game plan. But yeah, change of formation. What's your views on that, Stu?
My preferred formation would be a 4-2-3-1. And I think if we do get Maddison, that would probably fit that more realistic than what we've got at the moment, the players available at the moment. And regarding the yesterday Twitter, I purposely didn't comment on the game at all. What you were reading last night was, if someone replies to us in the polite, I'll be polite back. And I think everyone should have the right to reply, but then it gets silly, it gets abusive, and it's never really about what the initial issue was. I liked a photograph of George, the one that you mentioned earlier with Peter Beardsley, and I thought it was a great photo of probably the best player ever played for Newcastle United. And if anyone knows George's backstory, he really is a living legend. So I thought it was a nice photo, but people want to have a go at that, fine, but let them crack on. The thankfully, Twitter isn't a reflection of the fan base. It's a small section of it, and there is, especially with it being anonymous for a lot of people, it does give people more rope, or it gives them more reasons to be abusive or be more outspoken. You know, and Mitch referred to it earlier, the times when we were back in Newcastle, you know, we're gobsmacked, astounded, by the warmth and generosity and the compliments that come from people. But, you know, if someone come up to us and says, you know, I watch you on the show and I think you're shit. Yeah, I don't think your opinion's right. That's fair enough, mate. Thanks for your feedback. How can I do better? I've got no problem with that whatsoever. But like I say, the vast majority of people are grateful for we're giving up our own time. We'll come on here, and as you can see, we'll bring on personalities, famous personalities like Suri. I have to be nice to Suri. I met him a couple of weeks ago. so
I don't want to know.
No, but this is how it was all planned. It was all planned a few weeks back before I went to see Andre in Bulgaria. So the 4-2-3-1. Yes.
Uncle Bulgaria.
No, I went to Bulgaria there for a wedding, and I met Andre, didn't I? In Sofia with young Tony and his amazing wife. Lovely, lovely family. In 3 weeks' time, I'm going to Riyadh. So, as you both know, I deal with Saudi people, wealthy Saudi people, on a daily basis. And is Eddie's Howe's job under position? I wouldn't have thought so in the slightest. The one thing that I've learned from dealing with CEOs, etc., of big companies, people who are in a position, is they won't do knee-jerk reactions. They look at what's being done, what can be done. Do we have the right man? They do a risk assessment, for want of a better phrase. You know, they'll think, right, is it worth getting rid of him? Who could come in? Can we get the I don't even think it's under consideration. They're aware of the frustration, they're aware of the limitations with the financial fair play, etc. And they know they've invested. They know that now. How much do you think Newcastle's worth now? Realistically, what they paid for it is worth at least double. At least double. If someone wanted to buy it, to me, they would have to probably pay nearly 3 times as much, and that's in the space of 12 months. They're buying it as a business. They'll make money from it, and they will ensure we succeed. And Eddie Howe is, to me, the right man for that job, and we shouldn't even be having any discussions or entertaining people who say he's not. He's got so much credit in the bank for what he's achieved since he come through that door, the work ethic he's got into the players, the belief he's got into the players. He's turned 4 or 5 out of 10 players into 7s and 8s, and then he's brought in people to complement that. So what's you got there? Is that his magic wand, Mitch?
Yeah, he's just seen a comment saying, can he give it some magic to get the players back quicker? So we all know what the magic words are. The magic is Wizzy. Let's get busy.
There we go.
Well, hopefully that's sort of
right.
You watch the ASM or Wilson will be back next week or after the internationals. Well done, Sudi.
He's got to go now. He's got a massage booked, so he's off to.
Okay, well, enjoy yourselves, Sudi. Bye.
See you, Sudi.
Fantastic. Paul says, a quick question. Have you changed your minds and opinions on St. Maximin? Stu, I'll let you have this first because you were just talking about St. Maximin, so it segued nicely into it.
The answer is no, I haven't changed my mind because, again, it gets escalated on and cropped and etc. on Twitter. My opinion of ASM is he's a highly talented player, but he can't be lazy at times, and that's not going to change. But had he played yesterday, if he was on his game, of course we would have won. But would he have just morphed into the atmosphere with the rest and jogged around, pretend he's got a stone in his shoe, rubbing his leg? We don't know. That's the enigma that he is. But would he have performed? Would he have improved that team yesterday? Of course he would. He's a class player, and on his day, he's a game changer. We've seen that at Wolves. That goal was sensational, you know, and that's what he's capable of, and that's what causes frustration. But we had it on a smaller scale way back in the day, 30-odd years ago with Gaza. You know, and what happens is you have a player like him who we know is capable of 9 out of 10, 10s out of 10. If they have an average game, it becomes a disaster. So we have players who are capable of changing, but we need to improve and not be so reliant on 1 or 2 players. And that's the challenge that the squad's got. So to answer St. Maximin, do I think he's a bad player? I've never once said he is. Do I think he can be lazy and hide in matches. Well, of course he can. And if anyone says different, then that's their opinion as well. Is he worth keeping? Is he worth persevering with? When he plays like he did against Arsenal at the end of last season, when he plays like he did against Manchester City, absolutely. And I tell you that what he did in those 2 games that he doesn't do often. He hit the byline. He took the man and he went down the line and then crossed the ball that way instead of being so predictable, cut inside. And that's how he manages to beat people, because it's like, I know Supermax mentioned, he gets the ball and you know he's going to cut in and just wander right the way across the pitch and another team get back. But when he gives the defender something to think about, he's got the talent, the immense talent at close quarters to go either way. And if the defender doesn't know what he's doing, it does create more emphasis for us. So hopefully he comes back. He does want to get in this French World Cup squad, and he pushes and pushes and pushes and gives us the performances that'll give him a chance to get in that squad.
I do see as well, again, like, I mean, a lot of people, are still split on ASM. Some people don't think that he should have just flown off to France yesterday. He was obviously given special dispensation. If he's not going to be able to play, keep the player happy. Let him go to France. That's what I say. Not everybody has to sit in the stands. And what purpose does it serve? Kieran Trippier is a completely different kind of person. He wants to be there. He wants to be part of it. He's bought into the club. ASM's clearly given that dispensation. Let him get on with it. As I say, keeping the player happy is important. If that means he's going to come back, all the better for Fulham, fully fit. Happy day. I just want to get this before I lose this one as well. Twitter's what I class as the see you next Tuesday's table in the local pub. The content on the show is brilliant and trolls make me smile. Remember, good people outweigh bad, Stu. That was for you, Stu, from Lee. Mitch, ASM.
You can't say that we haven't missed him, because we have. It's quite clear. Like you say, I've got no problem with him going for treatment where he feels he's getting the best treatment with the blessing of the club. It's the fact that he's done little trips before without the blessing of the club and then screwed stuff up trying to get back into the country. And it's those things that irritate me about him. The ASM we have when he's on his game, we've said it clearly and fully all the time when we're being accused of being anti-ASM. It's quite the opposite. We want the ASM that's firing all cylinders 8 games out of 10. Not 4 games out of 10. Because when he is firing all cylinders, he's a handful. He's impossible to nail down. And absolutely, totally is vital to the progress. And it's entirely up to him. If he wants to get into the French squad, it's up to him. Bring it. Because we all benefit when you bring it, mate. And we love it. But then we get frustrated when he's doing the rolling around the pitch, slapping his thighs, looking pissed off and looking hacked off when he's lost the ball, those kind of things. The irony is, he injured himself running back to try and prevent a goal, which actually wasn't then given. But we've seen a shift with him. And maybe some of that shift, and again, we spoke about this before, is with the blessing and the understanding of the management and the squad. Let him go and do some of these things that he likes to do in his extracurricular stuff. And if that puts him in a headspace where he's better off to play football, fine. If you want to go and have treatment with a medical team that you're confident with and you're happy with and they've got the blessing of the club, go, do it. It worked for Callum Wilson when he was allowed to go down to Bournemouth to have a lot of stuff done on the South Coast. So there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't work with him either. But equally, the same caveats with the ASM apply. We need to see 8 games out of 10, not 4. We need to see that hunger and that desire, because when he's on form, everybody benefits.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah, look, I think everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet. I hope that's not true. The point that someone's put in there, that somebody said that they heard at the match yesterday, there's a possibility, there it is, but being that he might not be available for Fulham. I mean, another 2 weeks, surely he must be getting close to some kind of fitness. As I say, that's just...
Well, again, though, Steve, this goes back to, what we're talking about, what could we take from American sports? In American football, they're obliged to give you an idea about what the injury is and the severity of the injury. And there is a huge difference between a grade 1 hamstring, for example, and a grade 3. You know, grade 1's 2 to 4 weeks, grade 3's 12 weeks plus. You know, and all week he's got a bit of a hamstring, and so it is fans. We've got no idea when he's due back, really, unless the club's very specific. And very rarely are the clubs very specific about injuries, and that I think needs to change.
Yeah, but they don't want to pressurise players either, bitch, as well, because some people heal differently others as well.
They do, but you can give a range. You can give a range. You know, that's not an unusual thing. In managing how he's being managed, the one thing that I hope we have is amazing contacts with, I think it's Monaco's medical team he goes to see. And so those ties must be very good at our medical team so we can monitor what's actually being done. It's all very well and good taking Instagram pictures of yourself in a barometric chamber when it isn't switched on. I want to know exactly what our medical team want to know exactly what he's been doing and exactly how he's recovering. And this sort of, what I don't want to hear is always had a little setback. Because that then you start to think, right, okay, we have to manage this now. But you know, I think it's frustrating sometimes that as fans we don't really get enough information on what the injury is, and so everybody's still playing guessing games about when he may or may not be available.
But
I'll tell you what I will say in his defence, though, again, before anything gets cropped, is he does get fouled more than anyone else, but that's because of the type of player he is.
Yeah.
And something to tie in with something we said earlier, if we had a Madison or we had someone else where it gave the defenders more than just DSM to think on, because he's always been, for the last few years, the go-to guy when we need to create something, you know, if Bruno's not further forward on the pitch. And regarding the crowd yesterday, sometimes it's up to the players to get the crowd going as well. It's not just all about, let's feel sorry for the players. I mean, I know I was watching it, I wasn't there, but once we had a few of those chances, you could hear the crowd. You could hear the atmosphere was coming back. Yeah. And it was a surreal atmosphere because of the reasons given. And as you said, it's never happened in any of our lifetimes, has it? It's 70 years since we've had something like this. I'm sure it won't be 70 years before the next time, but at the same time, we wanted the game on. You know, there was people complaining that last week was cancelled, and rightly so, it should have been cancelled. In the Premier League, I thought did right to do that, because imagine that said, right, all games are ahead. They were on a hiding to nothing. They were in a no-win situation. Had they played the games last week, they would have been, you're greedy, this, that, and the other. So they did right to cancel it. And for once, they took the moral stance and took it the right way. So we all had our morning last week. We wanted the game to go ahead. Yes, it's up to us as fans to react in a way, but I'm sure, as you said, Steve, I wasn't there, but you're going into the ground and you haven't got the same build-up, the same atmosphere. You know, they say the music's not there, the flags aren't waving. But however, man, we've created some massive atmospheres in that place without flags. You know, so the players, yes, it transfers both ways. So could the atmosphere be better? Yes, but so could the performance. And to me, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, Dave, your question is there, mate. I've got it on standby for the second half, but as you know, halfway through the show, we always come to the ads. Big thank you to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil at 3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. It does us a big favour. And click share to share to your social media, such as Facebook and Twitter. Maybe add it to a Newcastle United group. You can also make a donation. Just hit the thanks button underneath if you're enjoying the content and you want to share something with me or the people on the channel. And you can also click join, which means that you commit to maybe a monthly membership, or you can become a cult member. How do you do that? Well, you go to the website, NUFCmatters.com, and you search for membership. What do you get for your £25 one-off payment? You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also have a smart code. There you go, the QR code there. If you put your smartphone over it, it'll take you straight to the website and you can get involved in a cult membership pack today. We also give you something for nothing. If you subscribe to the show, then email john@nufcmatters.com and get your free car window sticker now. We also support the food bank on here. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is the Matchday Bucket website. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation. Don't forget, during the season on match days, we're at the Dog and Parrot with Supermac, pre-match and post-match. And we're at Pumphrey's, John Anderson and John Gibson, pre-match only. Also got the Takeover anniversary party coming up at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £2 on the door, and you can get your tickets for that from nufcmatters.com. And Supermac will be at the Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, table is £650, and you can get those tickets from 0191 237 0133. Okay, Dave, there's your question. Why do we keep playing Miggy on the right when he's a left-sided player, Stu?
That's crossed my mind as well, because when he first came, Rafa played him on the left, didn't he? Feeding off Rondon. But it seems to be the way of the game now, isn't it? The left-sided, left-footed players play on the right and right-footed players play on the left. And the way he's setting up with a 4-3-3, the game seems to be about cutting in. But same with Fraser as well. You can swap them over, but Miggy gets a lot of stick and he gets a lot of respect for his hard work, which you should work hard. They get paid thousands for it. But is he the answer? Is he going to be the one that gets us into the Champions League? Probably not. Is he a good squad member? Yes. But is he better than what we've got sitting on the bench? Yes, he is. So I think we need to get off his back a little bit and just appreciate what he does. And a lot of things are unseen. The fact that he does get back in covers for Trippier when they tend to double up or target that side when the forwards do that. Would a Diaby, as we've been linked with several times, would he be willing to put the work ethic in? So why he plays on the right hand side? That's because that's where Eddie Howe wants him and sees him best suited. That's the only answer I can give to that.
Yeah, Mitch, I would agree with that as well. Do you?
Stats and data. That's why inverted wingers appear, because if you look at the stats, more goals are scored from in-swing and crosses. And it also gives the winger the opportunity to cut inside and shoot and create options in the box. And again, if you look at the stats and data about where chances are created from and scored from, people cutting inside and playing with the opposite foot creates more opportunity. And that's the whole concept behind inverted wingers, and that's why many teams do it. And it's what frustrates me is the amount of professional footballers that aren't two-footed. I mean, I'm an overweight dentist in Dubai, and I can still play two-footed. You know, and if I can do it, anybody can.
I think the psychology
let alone
as
professional
well.
Footballers.
Sorry, but I was going to say the defender, if you like the left back's left footed, so if you're cutting in, you're going against the defender's weaker foot as well.
Yeah.
You're on your strong foot against the defender's weaker foot.
If he's defender worth his salt, he shouldn't let you cut inside. That's the other
But
thing
to be
that
fair,
drives me nuts.
But to be fair, I think he's got a shot like he's got marshmallow feet, hasn't he? He's got no power in him at all. So he can't. He scored the odd scorcher like he did against Crystal Palace, but even then that was more curled, wasn't it? So I think he runs himself that
rather than blasts.
Yeah, he runs himself that ragged. By the time he gets in a shoot opportunity, he's got no energy left to kick the ball at a decent pelt.
Not sure whether you lads have seen much of Paqueta since he signed for West Ham, but Mark Garfoot says we seem to have avoided a banana skin in Paqueta. What do you guys think? And Lee says Paqueta looked average today, lads. Early days. Was this bloke hyped?
I haven't seen any of it. I haven't seen any of the Paqueta game. And I still stand by, if we wanted him, we could have got him. So whether
he was in the pipeline.
Yeah, he absolutely was.
Definitely, we know he was, and
yeah,
so
I know
and we know he was sat on for at least 3 weeks, and that shows that there was obviously something there that Howe didn't fancy, or maybe he's negotiating the price wasn't right, or maybe they wanted to secure other options. And just had him sort of hovering there as an option. I haven't seen any of them play for West Ham at all, so I can't really comment on have we avoided a banana skin with him.
I've watched him. I wouldn't say that there's anything there that really makes him stand out to me. I don't think he's any better, and I don't think he's any worse than Bruno. God, this guy's an accomplished Brazilian international. So, he looks on par with Bruno. I think if we'd got him, it would have been too much of the same old. And someone made a valid point about, our best run of form with midfield was with Bruno, Joelinton and Shelvey. And maybe that's the way that Howe is thinking, with regards to that. Okay, you haven't watched Paqueta. I think that covers that question. John asks, hi lads, do you think Botman's going to be happy sitting on the bench? And it's interesting, isn't it? Because he chose Dan Burn yesterday, Stu, to start. I thought, and I picked out Burn as one of our best players yesterday, alongside Fabian Schär. Don't think either one of them did themselves any harm at all. The goal was sloppy. It's one of them. The kid had man of the match performance, Bill, and stuck his foot out, and it just went in. And Pope had no chance with it, but. Botman, is he going to be happy? Some people said he had a bit of a niggle and maybe that's why he didn't start. But, he does seem to have been chopping and changing. Even Lascelles has featured at some point, Stu. So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think any of the centre-halves have let us down. And you mentioned Lascelles there. I honestly think he's been magnificent every time he's played for us. At the end of last season and when he's played this season, he's given his all. So it's... whether he's trying to find his right formation or not, whether Botman had a niggle, of course he's not going to be happy sitting on the bench. But they have to understand it's a squad game now. But I'm sure he has insight to be on the bench, and any player worth the salt isn't going to be happy sitting on the bench. They should all want to be on the pitch. So that in itself answers that one, isn't it? Is he happy on the bench? Of course not. However, regarding Botman, I think him and Schär are our best partnership. And it might have just been they had a taller player or a quicker player. That he knows what he's doing. And something you just said there, Steve, when you were handing the question over, you thought Burn was one of our better players. You thought someone said Shaw was one of our better players. And that's just a reflection on the game yesterday. We had 70% possession, and our best players were our defenders. So the problem wasn't in defence yesterday. So it doesn't matter to me which combination of the four main centre-halves we've got. It's the creative players that let the result slip away yesterday, and that's the thing. That's the frustration. But we know, and if we know it, Eddie Howe will know it. His coaching staff will know it. The board will know it, and they'll get it. But I alluded to earlier about buying someone just for the sake of buying them, just to appease people and get them on a big contract. It was Paqueta I was talking about, but I didn't want to say it in case it caused a stir. So I'm glad that Mitch went on to say that he was in the pipeline. Yes, they could have signed him whenever they wanted. If they had offered the same money as West Ham, Paqueta would be wearing Newcastle's grip. Would it have helped yesterday? Yes, it would have. Will it help long term? We'll see what happens when they get who they want in January.
Yeah, okay. What's your thoughts on that, Mitch?
Maybe he's gone with Burn because he felt he would know Bournemouth better, and Bournemouth might have been a bit more combative, and therefore he could handle that better, rather than chucking Botman in an unknown quantity and an unknown opposition. That said, with the amount of possession we had, I would have rather had Botman's ball playing ability in that back four, but that's really easy to sit here and say that with the benefit of hindsight. That makes it sound like a genius. It's clear he's going to mix and match his centre backs and play horses for courses, and I think that's all it's about. And I think they all know that. I think they all know that they'll get a chance, and I think they all know that will be games they've got to sit out every now and again, and that's fine.
Our bench is also our for sale list. No depth whatsoever within the squad, not helped by Howe's insistence for like substitution, says Mark. Paul says, do you think we were lucky to get a draw yesterday when you look at Everton nicking a win today?
No, we weren't lucky getting a draw.
We were lucky at all. No.
No, not at all lucky. But we said it right at the top of the show. Bournemouth did us what we've been doing to teams for the last few years. It's just it's a different medicine we're having to taste now, and we are seeing a scalp. And the comment that was there earlier about our bench being our for sale thing, it's a fair reflection, it's a fair assessment. It probably is. But imagine that they went and bought another 6 or 7 players in the summer. It will take time. The transformation will take time, and they are going the right way about it, and they are proving that they're not going to get taken for bugs. And if they've got the right people that they want, yes, they were regarding Madison, just to revisit that. They were given a strong indication. I remember I was in Dubai and we did a show, and I said I just had a message from Mitch, who we were out with the night before at the Burj Khalifa. It's in there. I've been told we will be going back in for Madison, which was the last week of the window, and they did go back in for Madison. So that's obviously, they wouldn't have done that if they didn't think there was something in it. If the player or his agent hadn't indicated, look, we want to go, he's gettable. You can't really blame the defence for yesterday. You can blame the creative players. If you want to pinpoint people saying Miggy creates nothing, Fraser didn't create anything. What did Joe Linton create yesterday? Or Joe Linton, sorry. He had a clear shot, he did this, but they were all guilty. So it's not just blame Miggy Day. Every single one of the offensive players were left short of what they're capable of. And when you have 1 or 2 having a bad game, you can get away with it. But when you've got 4, 5 or 6 of them having a bad game, then it reflects we're not good enough to get over that. We don't have the strength and depth like a Man City have, when they can bring a Foden off the bench or a Mahrez off the bench. We're bringing a Murphy off the bench at the moment. Get off his back. You know what I mean? It's not going to help the lad either, is it?
Yeah. But as Lee says, we're 5 minutes into the project, Stu.
Yeah. They are here long term, and they do projects very, very well. And we know we've repeated this constantly. They won't come second. They will get to where they want, and it's all targeted around Saudi for the Vision 2030. They will have Newcastle as, by that time, which is 8 years down the line, Newcastle as a huge powerhouse in world football. Now, to get to be a huge powerhouse in world football in 8 years, you're not going to get it by finishing 7th or 8th every season. So there'll be progress. And again, you've got to attract the right type of player. And once they get the right type of player, then that's when the pressure comes on to me on the manager. You know, we've got you a team now that is capable. You've asked for this player, we've got you. You're now capable of taking the next level, getting in that top 6. We've got a tactically astute manager who is always looking to improve, always looking to develop. And we should be lucky we've got him, you know, and I personally think he's a fantastic manager. He's the right manager for this club. We'll move on. The Saudis will give us enough money. They'll give him enough backing to deliver, and I'm more than confident he will.
Yeah, he will do. Yeah, and it is a project, Mitch. We're coming up to the year anniversary of the takeover, and as Lee again quite rightly says, too many short memories here. United supporters for change. Apart from the lads on the show who actually watched and was there, everyone seems to want now.
There seems to be a little element of that creeping into the fan base, but I think generally most people are level-headed and understand where we're at. I think we've done a lot of work trying to explain FFP and why it's important to how we progress and the way we progress. I think a lot of more people understand that very clearly now. And so, yes, there's frustration, but again, We're sitting here talking about how to turn draws into wins, not how to turn losses into draws, and it's a very, very different conversation. And that's just 1 year in, where we were going down. When that takeover happened, we were headed only one way, and that was in the same division that Sunderland are currently in. And we need to remember that. That doesn't mean they get a free pass and everything, and it doesn't mean they're beyond criticism, and that doesn't mean that they're beyond frank and honest discussions, and it doesn't mean we still can't be critical friends to the club. We need to be. We need to call it out when they get things wrong. But we now have people in charge who actually give a monkeys, and if they have got something wrong, they'll do their damnedest to put it right. And that's, again, we're talking about a different thing. And I think we'll go one step at a time. We all agreed pretty much last season that having a season where we're not spending all season looking over our shoulder at relegation and a couple of good runs in the cups would probably make a good progress forward. Well, that's where we're at. And therefore, I think we'll have to try and remember that a little bit when we get a little bit impatient or we're getting frustrated. Because frustration yesterday was the name of the game. We were frustrated. We were out shithoused by somebody in the way that we've done to teams last season. And so we've got to take that on the chin and accept it. You know, fair play to them. We probably still should have won on balance. Pope wasn't making saves like, you know, Dino's off and left, right and centre. The best saves of the game came from their keeper. So, you know, we cannot be... I would be more worried if we were sitting here saying, well, we had 42% of the possession and only one shot on target and we look grim back to front, which isn't the case. So I think we've just got to stay positive.
Toonami, I don't drink beer, mate, so I wasn't on the Peroni. And it's all about opinions. I thought our back four played quite well yesterday, and Shaw and Dan Burn definitely stood out for me. Butterbean makes a good point. We won't be worrying about relegation. Let's be honest, that's a huge relief. It was a poor performance, but it's a long season. And again, it's 73% possession, as I keep saying, 20 goal, 20 shots on goal, 8 on target. It wasn't as bad. It was just one of those games. Nothing that we can really, put a finger on other than lacking creative players and not having strength and depth. It's as simple as that. Apart from Bruno and Isaac, this is still Bruce's midfield and forward line. Needs a huge amount of work, but will take time to get the right players in. Toonami also says, we dodged a bullet with Paqueta on today's performance. He looks like a cart horse. But as Kenny Ranson said, give the kid time to settle in the Premier League. He's a Brazilian national. He'll come good. And at the moment, he's playing in a West Ham team that's third bottom of the league. So things aren't going well. I'm sure David Moyes, will get the best out of him at some point. Okay, Mr. Anderson, good evening. Says, what are your opinions on how much we spend in January and what positions? I think we touched on it a little bit at the start. We still believe midfield will be where he strengthens. Wingers, creative midfielders, that and potentially another forward, Stu, if we can get one, although we don't know what kind of window it's going to be, having come out of a World Cup.
Yeah, I think since the takeover, for those who have watched the shows, I was a big champion of trying to get Calvin Phillips from Leeds. And obviously once Man City couldn't call him, then we're not in a position to compete with them at the moment. But if he had come to us, that would have freed Bruno to go forward, and we're in a different proposition. Is Bruno going to be one who is the sitting midfielder, or is he more effective for the team further up the pitch? Or if they do bring a Madison type in, do they put him back? That's things for Eddie Howe. That's another challenge, another conundrum he has to unwrap. It's clear that it's a midfielder and a right attacking down the right hand side. That seems to be the general consensus. And if you look at the players that they have been linked with, that's where the positions are most of them are. Either that or it's a left forward side, whether it was Jack Harrison or something like that there. We know as fans, they'll know as the coaching team, they know what they need to do. But we're talking about challenges for Eddie Howe. The fact of the way the game went yesterday, same as Crystal Palace, it's a new challenge for him as well. He was at Bournemouth, they were never dominating games with that much possession. And having teams sit back against them, they played fast, free-flowing, counter-attacking football. And that's what we started doing at the end of last season. But now we're seen as one of the big boys without the big boy squad. So it's a challenge. It's a different type of challenge. rightly, as someone's just pointed out there, we're not going to be fighting relegation ever. As long as we have these owners, we should never ever be in a relegation scrap ever again. And that, for some, is enough. For others, they want to be winning the Champions League this season, even though we're not in it. You know, so somewhere in the middle, there's the potential for growth, and we will get there. But just trust them a bit. You know, actually, they've got plenty of credit at the bank. They deserve our backing, and we should be giving them it.
Yeah, Mitch, it's right, isn't it? You know, there is an expectancy around the club. People think that we should be, you know, challenging for this, challenging for that. Yesterday was a bit of a reality check. Crystal Palace was a bit of a reality check. That's where we're at the moment. We're still building. We're putting the foundations in. But as I've said before in this programme, we're putting the foundations in, and they're concrete, they're not sand.
And I think for me, in January, a midfield destroyer, and somebody who was either a winger or an attacking midfielder who has the ability to break down stubborn defences like Crystal Palace and like Bournemouth. That's what we're missing, is that little bit of X factor. And I think if we can bring that in January, I don't really need much more. Because as you say rightly, if we're bringing in somebody who's a proper midfielder destroyer, then it frees Bruno up to do a bit more magic further up the pitch. And then again, we've got more creativity in that attacking third. So that would be my targets. No names specifically on my mind. I'm interested to see how things unfold.
Yeah,
and the point you make with it being post World Cup, there's people who could make names for themselves in November and December, and suddenly appear on the radar where they necessarily haven't been on the radar, or some who maybe's been on the radar but they've been uncertain about may actually make themselves more viable in terms of performance because they've had a bloody good World Cup and they look like superstars. So let's see.
I didn't get a chance to see Eddie Howe's press conference on Friday, but was Elliot Anderson injured?
It wasn't mentioned.
Wasn't mentioned. You know, he wasn't even in the squad.
No, he must have some sort of injury, but he's like I said on one tweet, I would like to play poker with Eddie Howe. He gives nothing away, does he?
No.
So he's something that when Mitch was talking about there about timescale and injuries, it's kidology in the game now, isn't it? They're not going to say he's definitely played, he's not played. They need to hold something back as a surprise. And maybe because the team sheet came out and some fans were expecting to see Wilson's name at least on the bench, to see St. Maxwell in the start 11, that wasn't. And to couple with the atmosphere of the Queen's passing and everything else, maybe that did have an effect on the crowd's performance as well. So the crowd were good, the team were good yesterday. We've both been a lot better, and we've both been a lot better. And does anyone here think we're not capable of going to Fulham in a couple of weeks' time and winning? Of course we are. And then things change all of a sudden. You know, you're only as good as your next result, and our next result to me is very easily a 3-point. What we've got is a different challenge. And if we'd scored first 9 of those games, we'd go on to win comfortably. And it's getting that first goal, because the teams that set up to use the phrase shit house against us, we need to learn how to break those down, as Man City do, patiently. We need to learn how to do it, and once we're ahead, they have to come out, because they're going to get beat anyway. And then once they come out, that's where we can start getting the Miggies and that in behind, using his pace and stuff, and freeing Isaac up and stuff like that. So it's frustrating, but it's 2 games. Don't worry about it.
PDK, always straight talking on here. Remember when we were bollocks? We should be beating teams like them. PDK, it's all about opinions. Anderson had a slight knock in training. That's what a lot of people are saying. Yano as well. I asked where he was. People replied when he was injured. Yano says he's had a slight knock. Craig Hope said he had a slight knock. Craig Hope also said that Sunderland's goal midweek should be goal of the season. So I'm starting to lose my patience with Craig Hope a little bit. Does he realise what division that's in? Slight knock off Longstaff in training. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there slowly but surely. Okay, do you think we're lacking a bit of confidence at the moment? I wouldn't say we're lacking confidence, our lads. Stu, no, not at all.
Nah, not at all. I think if anything, they could have been overconfident, and that could have been one of the reasons why, you know, they turn up thinking that we are better than these. We know we are, and the same effort. Not the effort, because they are trying, but the mentality is different to like when you go at Anfield and you know it's. Right, we have to put everything into this to get a result out of it. They're not lacking confidence, not in the slightest. You know, if you look at how each and every player has improved under Eddie Howe in his coaching team, there's no way they're lacking confidence. And as I said, I think if they got one, in your phrase, Steve, they would have went up. They would have got 3, 4, or 5 if they scored in the first 20 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, Sunderland's goal wasn't that good. The defence got caught too far up. Thanks, monkey suit. That's what I thought, mate. And we'll give the last comment to Steve. He says, I just cannot see Willock in the same midfield as Joe and Bruno. Can Willock be pushed higher upfield as an attacking midfielder or even on the wing? Again, another one I think eventually will be surplus to requirements. Could end up on the bench, but you know, we are a work in progress. We are building towards bigger things, and a lot of these players that we're talking about and groaning and moaning about at times won't be anywhere near Newcastle United in a couple of years' time, I do not believe. That's it. Hours up. Done 2 great shows today. Want to thank Mitch. Thanks to Stu. Thanks to Sooty, of course. And I am not live tomorrow, but me and George are on tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Those were the days. We are looking back at 64, 65, and it is a promotion season, so well worth tuning into that. But I'm coming back with a double whammy on Tuesday. Me and Ross Gregory, 10:30 on Tuesday morning, and me and Ben Jacobs, 3 o'clock tomorrow. At 3 o'clock, on Tuesday night, 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, so 2 shows for the price of 1 on Tuesday. But thanks for everybody for joining us. Thanks to the lads. Take care. And bye, Sooty. What did he used to do at the end of the programme?
Goodbye, boys and girls.
Take care, lads.
Cheers, everyone.